So thank you, Mr. President. Next, we'll ask Mr. Venchak, our Assistant Superintendent, to present information about the status of the Livermore Valley Charter School, which, as you know, we have assumed oversight over that group since July. And also, we have available in the audience, we have Mr. John Ye. He's our legal counsel that helps us with the charter school oversight, and he's here from Burke Williams Swartz.
Thank you again, Ms. Bowers. This part of the show will be a quick review of the Livermore Valley Charter School and the oversight that we've been conducting. It's the halfway point of the year, and so this is an update. And just to remind you of how we've arrived at the place we are today. In July, we began our role as oversight agency. That was approved. The oversight was approved by the board last February. The district staff, in connection with Mr. Ye, created an oversight checklist. And it was in part response to the last board meeting when the board suggested that some sort of checklist, a very comprehensive checklist, would be a good way to ensure that oversight is going smoothly. And so we did. We created a comprehensive list over 250 items, both from our Memorandum of Understanding and from Education Code. This oversight checklist was provided to the Tri-Valley Learning Corporation, their Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bill Batchelor, and their principal. And so they had a chance to review it and understand the parameters of what we're expecting. And this was divided into 7 areas of compliance. And I'm going to briefly go through each of these areas of compliance and let you know how LVCS has done in each of these areas. You can see these 7 areas here. General requirements, which is set up primarily and how they go about establishing themselves. There were 15 compliance items. Fiscal and business operations had 89 items. The education program had 40 items, facilities 19, governance 58, personnel 23, and student services. And you can see from this that there really was a focus, and in part based upon the board's response last year to their fiscal and business operation and their governance. And so that's where the primarily their items exist. And so starting with the general requirements, there were 15. They've met 14 of those items. From the one area that they were lacking, there was a request from action made by the district. In the area of fiscal and business operation, they've complied in 74 of the 89 areas. 3 have received information recently to bring that number to 77. 4 of the items that they are not yet in compliance with would be met later on this year. And again, there were 8 requests for action, primarily around items such as approval of business expenses and things like that. And so a lot of it had to do with just changes in the way that they conduct their operations. In terms of their education program, there were 40 items. They were compliant in 37 of the 40. 2 will be met in the future, and those have to do with the local control funding formula and the plan that they have to put in place. And then there was 1 request for action to comply in the other area. 18 of the 19 areas were met in facilities by the deadline, and most recently I've received documentation of the others, so they're fully in compliance now in terms of facilities. In the area of governance, they were compliant in 45 of the 58 items, and again, recent documentation that was given to me met 2 areas. 1 would be met in the future, and there were 9 requests for action. And I'll talk a little bit about those toward the end. Personnel, they met 22 of 23 items, and it has to do with the process they go through to ensure the teachers are credentialed, items like that, and there was 1 request for action that came from that, and that had to do with approval of personnel by their board. In the area of student services, they've met 19 of 20 items, 1 to be met in the future, and that has to do with the processes that they engage in to ensure that they're meeting the demographic nature of the surrounding area. In summary, again, 264 items of compliance. They were found to be compliant in 229 of those areas. I created requests for action for all other areas. I do want to mention that the relationship between the district and the charter organizers and charter personnel has increased substantially since we've taken over. Very pleased with the cooperative nature and the fact that when we ask for information, they provide it to us in a fairly timely manner. There are still general concerns about governance procedures and transparency of operations, and most of the requests for action had to do with them being more upfront with their dealings, putting salary schedules on the website, for example, making sure that they're meeting all the requirements of the Brown Act, making sure that they're very transparent with their public in terms of the dealings that they have with their students and with their teachers. And so I think we've had a very candid conversation, myself and Mr. Batchelor and Ms. Aderman, and I think they're comfortable with the expectations that have been placed upon them. So at the midpoint in the year, I'd say things are going very well. Again, we have had to make some requests for additional documentation, and so far I have no reason to believe that they won't be cooperative in all those areas. As we move forward, we will begin the process of monitoring their recruitment and enrollment process. This is a concern that the board shared last year, that their demographics did not match the surrounding community, and so they're in the process now of recruitment and enrollment for next year, and we'll see how that works. We'll be taking a look at the achievement data here in the middle of the school year and make sure that all of their significant groups are having their needs met, primarily those with special needs. We'll continue to review on a monthly basis their budget and their cash flow. And once again, I'll be making additional site visits in February and in April, just to check things out and make sure that facilities are in good shape and that they're providing the program that they've indicated they would be providing to their students. So that's where we stand now. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, or if you have questions for Mr. Yeh, he's here as well.
Mr. Dunlap, any questions?
Thank you for the report. It's very thorough, and I appreciate the way you've organized that and outlined clearly the number of items that need action. So thank you very much. That's helpful.
What?
Yes. We continue to mention the failure or the difficulty in meeting the demographic ratio that matches the demographics of the district. This is something that has concerned the board and the community for years and years and years, 7 or 8 as it is. And the more I ponder this, the more I think we should consider that it's not for lack of effort on this part of the charter schools people, but it may be because of their practices in accepting legacy students, that there are so few openings for diverse students that without modifying their legacy student provision, they'll never get there. And I think we need to decide, we as a board, how seriously we want to approach this. Because if you can't get there from here, we either need to give up on this goal, which is in fact in the charter school law, or insist that some changes be made elsewhere in their governance model to see that they do meet the law.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin.
Yeah, that's hard to get your attention. Thank you. And I'm very happy to be part of you and to be working in the future with you. So good luck to all of you.
I'd like to say I like the format. I liked it. Really shows you the scope of the oversight that we have to do. And I'm sure there's going to be additions to it. I saw that the new year brought in some new laws. But yeah, it brought a lot of clarity and also the trigger points of when you have to check them again, I guess, for lack of anything else. But yeah, thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Any other discussion? Anybody from the public? No?